Guys, this is an addendum to the Book of Eli. We saw quite a few more things in the film I wanted to mention. I was talking to my son's aunt. We were saying, I mentioned earlier that the whole scene of the atmosphere of the film that's apocalyptic is it's a desert. And God's word says that when there is a famine of God's word, it's like a desert. When there's a famine, it's a desert. There's no green, there's no life. And there's only one copy, we already know through spoiler alert, that the book that is being preserved by Eli is the King James Bible. Now, at the end, someone pointed out it's printed as the New King James, but I thought they were saying it's new because it's the first being printed of the King James Bible. Because when he quotes Paul at his death, he says, I have run the race. I have kept the faith, and it's the King James Version. So I don't know if it's the New King James that they're reserving or if it's the King James and they call it New King James and they print it because it's the first of many ones. So Eli takes it to a man that has a printing press, and I believe he is a scribe used by God. That's what he would be in the Bible. Eli is the only good guy, and there's many bad ones. Gary Oldman represents the tyrant who wants to get his hands on God's word so that he can control the masses through twisting God's word, kind of like the Catholic Church or any cult or a satanic person of God being used by the principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, this world, spiritual wickedness in high places, because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Satan uses his people. And so Eli, who is a blind man, actually is fighting and killing enemies. Now, we know it's not Eli. You don't even know the guy's blind because he's killing the enemies. He says the kingdom of heaven suffers violence. We forget we are literally at war. Now, it doesn't mean we're at war with flesh and blood like human beings, but a spiritual war against the prince of the power of the air. But he has been defeated by Christ. We know that. He proclaimed his victory when he preached to the spirits in prison who were sometimes disobedient in the times of Noah. So, my point is there were a few things that I missed. I really wanted to mention the desert is the famine of God's word, and there's only like one or two people of God, but everybody else, there's only a remnant, and then everybody else is evil and being used by Satan. And what? They are starving. People are starving, and they're starving for literal food, but I believe that represents the famine of God's word. That's why they have no peace. They have no provision. And so what happens is they run into people that seem nice. They're invited in to eat with them and so forth. Turns out those people are cannibals. In the Bible, it says that is a curse. They will be forced to eat people. It's in there. It's pretty gross in the Old Testament. Now, that represents to me that the reason they are evil is that they do not have God's word. They're actually starving for God's word. And so they're in fear and they're struggling and they're fighting. Because the food here represents God's word to me. And so it's interesting because you know that Eli's power is of God because he's blind, just like David with Goliath. You know God's hand was on him. And he had no doubt he was going to hit him. He picked up 5 rocks. Why? Did he think he was going to miss? No, because Goliath had 4 brothers. He was ready to go to town with all the giants. So I wanted to show you there's even so much more to be gleaned from this film. I'm not here to like promote a secular movie, but again, my son's aunt and I were saying we see God in everything, man. And if you don't think God can use secular films or secular music or secular art to reach people, you're really limiting God, man. And I appreciate the viewer that reminded us of that. I'm always trying to share things with you, but I get condemned if it's not overtly religious or it's got some cursing or some violence, as if we're so fragile we can't see it. We're wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. They forget that. And so I wanted to remind you of the main moral of the story is that the man who could see visually, Gary Oldman, he was finally got his hands on the book and it was Braille and no one was there to translate it. So if you say you can see, you'll be blind because you say and you are in your sin if you say you can see. That's what he told the Pharisees. Because you say you can see, your sin remains. And so when you're physically blind, God gives you vision. It is a symbolic. So Eli, who couldn't physically see, could see God's word. But the man who could physically see was blind to God's word. His motive was to use it to be a tyrant and to control the people. It is absolutely an amazing metaphor, and there's so much more to it than just the desert, meaning the famine of God's word, and the few, the very few, because narrow is the way. Jesus is the way, by the way. Narrow and straight. It doesn't mean straight as in not crooked. Straight is in narrow. The reason it's narrow is because Jesus is it. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Narrow is the way because it's a person, not a process. Okay, that's why it's narrow. It's not exclusive. It's not saying that only certain people can. No, he offers it to everyone. That's what kills me when they go, "It's so exclusive. You only want it." No, it's not. He offers it freely by his grace. Whosoever will, come, take freely of the water. So I just wanted to add to what I had seen in the movie, and I hope that you guys can see God everywhere too. It is really a blessing. All right, God bless.